Well, yesterday I drove home from Anchorage and I live to tell about it. It was a whiteout in the pass, going about 25 miles an hour, but there was enough traffic. I just glued myself to the tail lights of the car in front of me and just followed wherever he led. Hopefully, he was going the right direction. Summit Pass was completely unplowed, and there was cars getting stuck in the lanes and just stopping right in the middle of the road. And when you pulled out to go around them, the 2-foot berm in the center would snag a lot of people too. Took me 4.5 hours to make the trip, but I had my brand new snow tires on, so I was unstoppable. And all that to say, hey, let's go with today's study. We have been looking at Jesus' reference to the Psalms, and we're going to continue to do that today. The one we're going to do is Jesus' reference is found in Matthew 23, so I'd like to read that to you. This is Jesus talking. "O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, the one who kills the prophets and stones those who are sent to her. How often have I wanted to gather your children together as a hen gathers her chicks under her wings, but you were not willing. See, your house is left to you desolate. I say to you, you shall see me no more until the time comes when you say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord." So we're going to start at the beginning, which is always a good place to start, and just look at each of the things that Jesus is saying here, because we get references from all over the prophets and the Psalms in here. But we're going to, I think anyhow, we're going to focus specifically on the Psalms, but we're going to touch on each one of them. So Jesus starts out by saying, "O Jerusalem, Jerusalem." And whenever you see Jesus talking and saying those like two names together, that means something special. It means that Jesus has a deep empathy for the person that he's talking to. And we see this happening in two other places in the Gospels when Jesus is addressing someone. One of the places he says, "Simon, Simon." And then he tells Simon how the devil has asked to, I think it says, sift him like wheat, but Jesus has prayed for him that he would stand. But when he says, "Simon, Simon," he's saying to Simon Peter, I have a deep empathy for you in this situation. And of course, Jesus did, because when Jesus was in the desert that one time and the devil came to him to tempt him, he went through the same thing that he's looking at what Peter is going to have to go through. And the other place is kind of surprising to us. He says to Martha of the Mary and Martha duo, he says, "Martha, Martha, there are so many things that you're concerned about." And he is telling Martha in that situation, I have a deep empathy for you in what you're facing. There's a huge task and you're facing it alone. We should be looking at that statement as Jesus empathizing with Martha. And so often the picture that we have is Jesus is standing there shaking his head with his hands on his hips, scolding Martha, saying, "Oh, Martha, Martha, what's your trouble here?" If that puzzles you, Jesus being empathetic to Martha, and it doesn't fit your traditional interpretation of the Mary and Martha story, good. But that's another talk for another time, so we're not going to go there this time. The point is that when Jesus says, "Jerusalem, Jerusalem," he is saying, I understand the turmoil that you're in. He doesn't discount the struggles that the people are having, the political struggles, the emotional struggles, the religious and spiritual struggles that they're having. He sees all that. He understands the confusion, but he doesn't support their actions. He goes on to say, "You are the one, Jerusalem, you are the one who has killed the prophets and stones those who are sent to you." Just right before Jesus is saying this about Jerusalem, he brings up the stoning of Zacharias, which took place in the temple courtyard. And there's a long, long list in the stories of the Kings and in Chronicles about prophets who have been killed. Jezebel, when she slaughtered most of the Lord's prophets, there was that time. Zechariah, of course, that I just mentioned, was stoned in the courtyard. And Jesus constantly brings this up to them in the prophecies. He reminds them of how they treat his messengers. And this is going to happen one more time, even after Jesus is gone. They're going to reject him. But there's going to be prophets again in the city of Jerusalem that once again Jerusalem will reject. And we see those in Revelation 11, and I'm actually going to turn and read that to you, what happens. And this is happening in the future. These are the two prophets that appear during what we call the tribulation period. When they finish their testimony, the beast that ascends out of the bottomless pit will make war against them, overcome them, and kill them. And their dead bodies will lie in the street of the great city, which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt, where also our Lord was crucified. This is Jerusalem that he's talking about. Then those from the peoples, tribes, tongues, and nations will see their dead bodies 3.5 days, and not allow their dead bodies to be put into graves. And those who dwell on the earth will rejoice over them, make merry, and send gifts to one another, because these two prophets tormented those who dwell on the earth. So this is one more time, the last time that Jerusalem is going to kill the prophets, and we're looking still in the future for that to happen. Even with this history that Jesus has just brought up and kind of thrown in their face, "O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, you who kill the prophets, the messengers that I've sent to you, how I have longed." And he doesn't say how I have longed to punish you, how I have longed to bring retribution to you, how I have longed to destroy you for the insults that you have offered to me. He says this, how I have longed to draw you, to gather you. Sorry, I have to read from my page here. How I have longed to gather your children as a hen gathers her chicks under her wings. This is the picture that we get from the Psalms. So we're going to look at several Psalms now to show this picture. We're going to start with Psalm 17. This is verses 8 and 9. The psalmist says, "Keep me as the apple of your eye. Hide me under the shadow of your wings from the wicked who oppress me and from my deadly enemies who surround me." So there's a picture of God gathering and hiding his people under his wings. Psalm 37, this is verses 7 and 36, this is verses 7 and 8. "How precious is your loving kindness, O God. Therefore the children of men put their trust under the shadow of your wing." Psalm 57, verse 1. "Be merciful to me, O God, be merciful to me, for my soul trusts in you, and in the shadow of your wings I will make my refuge until the calamities have passed me by." Psalm 63, verses 7 and 8. "Because you have been my salvation, in the shadow of your wings I will rejoice. My soul follows close behind you, your right hand upholds me." And Psalm 91, this is verses 1 and 4. "He who dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. He shall cover you with his feathers, and under his wings you shall take refuge." So these are just a few of the Psalms that Jesus is invoking when he draws the picture of himself as a hen gathering the chicks under his wings. We're going to read a little bit more in Psalm 91. I'm going to turn to that now. Starting in verse 3. And what we're doing now is we're seeing what God has offered to Jerusalem as he laments over them. When he says, "I have longed to gather you under my wing," the people listening to him are going to remember what he offers them by saying, "Gather you under my wing." So take a listen to this. "Surely he shall deliver you from the snare of the fowler and from the perilous pestilence. He shall cover you with his feathers, and under his wings you shall take refuge. His truth shall be your shield and buckler. You shall not be afraid of the terror by night, nor of the arrow that flies by day, nor of the pestilence that walks in darkness, nor of the destruction that lays waste at noonday. 1,000 may fall at your side, and 10,000 at your right hand, but it shall not come near you. Only with your eyes shall you look and see the reward of the wicked. Because you have made the Lord, who is my refuge, even the Most High, your dwelling place, no evil shall befall you, nor shall any plague come near your dwelling. For he shall give his angels charge over you to keep you in all your ways. In their hands they shall bear you up, lest you dash your foot against a stone. You shall tread upon the lion and the cobra, the young lion and the serpent you shall trample underfoot. Because he has set his love upon me, therefore I will deliver him. I will set him on high because he has known my name. He shall call upon me, and I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble. I will deliver him and honor him. With long life I will satisfy him and show him my salvation. These are all the saving acts that Jesus has promised to Jerusalem if they would allow him to gather them under his wings. But, he says, you were not willing. Jerusalem has rejected God's offer that we just read about. All these things that he has promised them, Jerusalem has rejected them. So God has often used this picture of a mother bird in his prophecies and in through the Psalms. We see this mother bird image come up a lot. And we are really comfortable with our image of God as a father. We have heard Jesus say several times, our Father who is in heaven. So we have that picture of God as a father. And he also, in some of his parables, he has said, what father of you would do this one thing? And how much more will your heavenly Father supply your needs? So all these references to God, the picture of God as our Father, but we're comfortable with that. But we're not comfortable with the images that we get of Jesus or God as our mother. We have we have these images that we can go to, but in our minds, because of our history, it's kind of scary. It feels kind of new agey to think about God as a mother. But we should not be surprised that God uses a mother image when he's talking to us, trying to get us to understand what he's like, because way back at the very beginning in Genesis 1, I think it's verse 27, he says, male and female were created in God's image. So the female attribute, of which motherhood is the main difference, we should not be surprised that God uses that, because that's part of his image as well. So God has shown his character as a mother through images of himself as a mother hen. He talks about himself as a mother eagle who carries the chicks. And he also talks about himself just as a mother. And in case you think that the characteristics he's describing are gender neutral, he also has described himself as a mother in no uncertain terms, where he talks about how he carried Israel in his womb. He talks about twisting and writhing in labor pains to give birth to the nation. And he talks about himself as a nursing mother and holding the child on his lap and nursing the child. And he says, even if a nursing mother would forget, I will never forget you. And that's a reference not to the fact that the baby squalls and so the mother feeds the baby, but it's a reference to something only a mother knows about when a baby's hungry. And I'm not going to go into it right now, but if you don't know what I'm talking about, go ask a nursing mother, and they know exactly why a nursing mother never forgets her child. God has likened himself to this nursing mother. God is not afraid to be identified as a mother image as well as a father image. So we don't need to be scared of calling God our mother as well as God our father. And as he looks out over Jerusalem now, and he's saying, you have rejected me, and because you have rejected me, all these things that I read in Psalm 91, they don't have that protection anymore. And so your house, he says to them, will be left to you desolate. And this is a reference to a prophecy in Jeremiah 6. I'm going to go there and read that one to you. Gather yourselves and flee from the midst of Jerusalem. Blow the trumpet in Tekoa and set up a signifier in Beth Hasaram. For disaster appears out of the north and great destruction. Skipping a few verses. Cut down trees and build a mound against Jerusalem. This is the city to be punished. She is full of oppression in her midst. As a fountain wells up with water, so she wells up with her wickedness. Violence and plundering are heard in her. Before me continually are grief and wounds. Be instructed, O Jerusalem, lest my soul depart from you, lest I make you desolate, a land not inhabited. So there's where we get that reference when Jesus says, your house will be left to you desolate because you have rejected the protections that my wing and abiding under my wing has been offered to you. This is what's going to happen. And then he finishes by saying, you will not see me again until you say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. And this is a reference to another psalm that we're going to take a look at. This is Psalm 118. And I'm going to read verses 20 through 26 to you. The stone which the builders rejected has become the chief cornerstone. This was the Lord's doing, and it is marvelous in our eyes. This is the day the Lord has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. Save now, I pray, O Lord. O Lord, I pray, send now prosperity. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. By quoting this psalm, Jesus has put himself squarely in the center of this prophecy, looking ahead to the day when the rejected stone becomes the chief cornerstone. And we have seen him say that Jerusalem has rejected him, and therefore it will be left desolate. But on the day that comes, he will become the cornerstone of the new Jerusalem. And it's on that day that the people will say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. So Jesus' reference to these Psalms gives us a picture of God gathering his children together under his wings like a mother protector. It also gives us a picture of those children, or us, as chicks, and what it looks like to be under the shadow of his wings. Since this is supposed to be a devotional video, let me list for you the Psalms that I read from, and you can look them up on your own and read through and see what it looks like for us to be under the shadow of God's wings. Some of the things we see are we put our trust in God, we take refuge in God. I'll let you find the rest, so I'll go ahead and list those off. Psalm 17, Psalm 36, Psalm 57, Psalm 63, and Psalm 91. Those are the ones I read from. There are some more in there. I pulled these ones out because I thought they were the most clear reference. In Psalm 63, right after the psalmist talks about taking refuge under the shadow of God's wing, he also talks about another fowl bird picture. My soul follows close behind you, he says. And if we're going to stick with the bird metaphor here, think about that for a minute. Have you ever seen a duck, a mother duck leading her ducklings to the water? My soul follows close behind you, like a baby bird follows along behind its mother. Our soul is following closely. The birds are following closely because they know that they're safe with their mother. And our soul knows that when we follow God and when we're under the shadow of his wing, that is the safest place that we can be.